My name is Derek Allen, I'm 26, and after I signed a contract worth $5 million, my sister pushed me into traffic. I woke up in the hospital in a coma, and my parents said I deserved it. If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. It was Friday, November 6, 2020, 21:14, when I came home with the folder still in my hand. The ink on the last page of the contract had barely dried. The smell of toner clung to the paper. I'd spent 6 months negotiating, 5 sleepless nights drafting, and 3 years grinding at work for this chance. Finally, the payoff was real, $5 million spread over 5 years for consulting guaranteed. I laid the folder on the dining table, still trembling with excitement. The house smelled of tomato sauce and bleach. My sister sat there scrolling her phone, smirk already curling at the corner of her mouth. "What's that?" my mother asked, drying a dish. "My future," I said softly, opening the folder. "Signed today. This is the contract." Numbers glowed under the kitchen light. $900,000 per year. My father's eyes widened for a flicker, then narrowed. "That much?" my sister muttered. "For you." "It's my work," I said, steady. Her voice sharpened. "You don't deserve it." The words hung heavier than the steam rising from the pot. My mother nodded slightly, as if agreement was easier than pride. By 21:42, I was heading upstairs with the folder still in hand. My sister's footsteps followed. At the landing just before the hallway light flickered, I heard her hiss, "You won't keep it." A hard shove hit my back. The world spun banister, wall, carpet, then black. I didn't know yet that in 12 days, when my family came to mock me by my hospital bed, the person standing beside me would make my father scream. When I opened my eyes, the world was blinding white. A beeping monitor kept time beside me, slow and steady. The air smelled of antiseptic, sharp enough to sting my nose. My throat was raw, as if I'd swallowed gravel. A nurse noticed, leaned over. "You're awake. Just rest. You've been under for 8 days. 8 days. The number echoed, impossible. My body felt like lead, every limb sunk in sand. Later, when the nurse left, I heard the shuffle of shoes. My parents entered. My mother's coat was zipped to her chin, my father's face stone. They didn't rush to my side. "You're lucky to be alive," my father said flatly. "Lucky." My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "She pushed me." Neither flinched. My mother's lips tightened. "You shouldn't provoke your sister. You parade numbers in her face and then look what happened. Maybe you needed this." The words were colder than the 4 drips sliding into my arm. "I signed that contract," I croaked. "I earned it." My father's gaze didn't waver. "Then maybe you should learn humility before you spend a dime." The monitor beeped faster, betraying my pulse. My chest ached under the bandage. By the time they left, silence weighed heavier than their presence. The clock above the door read 19:26. The hallway smelled faintly of stale coffee. The next morning my sister appeared. She leaned against the wall, hair perfectly styled, nails painted crimson. "Coma suits you," she whispered. "Too bad it wasn't longer." Her laugh was soft, cruel, then she was gone. I stared at the 4-line, the tape pulling at my skin. My body was weak, but inside something began to harden. If survival was an insult to them, then every breath I took would be defiance. Lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't stop the reel of memories. This wasn't new. It had always been this way. At 7, when I won a local art contest, my sister tore the drawing in half before I could frame it. My parents barely reacted. "Don't gloat," my mother said. At 13, I studied every night for the regional science fair. My sister skipped school to hang out at the mall. When I won 3rd place, my father glanced at the medal once, then told me to help her with homework so she wouldn't fall behind. At 18, I was accepted into a competitive university program with only 12 slots. My parents told everyone they were proud of my sister for starting beauty school. The pattern was clear. She was shielded, I was sharpened. No matter what I achieved, it was swallowed by their silence, while her smallest steps were magnified. By 24, I'd built myself out of scraps, late nights, endless freelance jobs, networking until my voice cracked. That contract I signed wasn't luck. It was hours counted, invoices chased, nights spent drafting until dawn. and the moment I brought it home they treated it like theft. Now, flat on my back in a hospital gown, I realized what was at stake wasn't only money. It was identity, recognition, my very right to exist without apology. I turned my head toward the window. Outside, November trees bent in the wind, branches clawing against the glass. My chest rose slowly, the bandages tight, but a thought pressed through the fog. If I let them erase me again, I may as well have stayed in that coma. I closed my eyes, replaying my sister's whisper. Too bad it wasn't longer. The 4 beeped steadily. My notebook, my work, my future, all waiting outside this room. And beneath it all, a promise flickered. This wouldn't end like the others. 3 days after waking, a young nurse wheeled in a plastic bag with my belongings. Clothes cut by paramedics, scuffed shoes, and my phone in a cracked case. The bag smelled faintly of hospital disinfectant and asphalt. I powered the phone on. The screen flickered, spiderweb cracks radiating across the glass. Notifications flooded. Emails, missed calls. But one message stood out, timestamped November 6, 21:55, 12 minutes after I fell. It was a group chat screenshot my coworker had forwarded. My sister bragging. She won't be so smug now. Maybe she'll learn her place. My stomach dropped. Proof. Words straight from her. I scrolled further. Another message. Don't worry, Mom and Dad will cover it. They always do. My hands trembled as I zoomed in, the blue bubble letters glowing cold. The beeping monitor betrayed my rising pulse. Later that night, when my parents visited, I kept the phone hidden under the blanket. My mother adjusted the flowers by the window. My father stood with arms crossed. She should be grateful she's alive, my mother muttered. I pulled the phone out, tapped the screen, and held it up. This is what she wrote. They froze. The screenshot glowed between us. My father's face darkened. Where did you get that? It doesn't matter, I rasped. She said it. She admitted it. My mother's lips pressed thin. Delete it. Don't stir things up. Their refusal to acknowledge cut sharper than the fall itself. I locked the phone, slid it under my pillow. That night, with the monitor's beep steady in the dark, the choice solidified inside me. I wouldn't delete. I wouldn't forget. I make a choice. On November 15, 2020, 9 days after the fall, I asked to see the hospital's patient advocate. The nurse raised an eyebrow but arranged it. At 14:32, a man in a navy sweater knocked and stepped in, clipboard under his arm. His badge read Marcus Patient Rights. The room smelled of bleach and wilted carnations. I handed him my phone, the cracked screen glowing with the screenshot. He read silently, lips tightening. Then he looked at me directly. This isn't just cruel. It's admission. Admission. My voice was still weak. He nodded. She says, she won't be so smug now. Combined with your fall? That's intent. And if your parents told you to delete it, that's obstruction. Don't erase this. Back it up. Print it if you can. My pulse quickened. Could this be used legally? Yes. As evidence. For an injunction, even criminal charges if pursued. But timing matters. Don't let them know you're preparing. I wrote his words on a notepad the nurses had left by the bed. November 15, 20 screenshot equals admission. Keep. Print. Use. That evening, my grandmother's old friend, Mrs. Rayner, who had visited quietly since the accident, sat by my bed. Her hands smelled faintly of lavender soap. They said I deserved it, I whispered. Her eyes flashed. No one deserves to be silenced. Keep your proof close. They'll try to bury it. She squeezed my hand, warm against the chill of the room. I realized then it wasn't paranoia. It was pattern. My sister's cruelty, my parents' cover. And now for once I had something they couldn't spin away, words, dates, receipts. When the monitor beeped, steady as a metronome, I thought, the stakes are no longer survival. They're justice. I closed my eyes, the paper with my notes still under my palm, and let resolve harden further. By November 20, 2020, my strength had returned enough to sit upright for hours. The bruises on my ribs still ached, but my mind was clear. I knew it was time to act. The lever I had was simple, sharp. A formal complaint with evidence. Step 1. I asked the nurse for the visitor log. Every entry, every timestamp, neatly printed. On November 6th at 21:50, 5 minutes after my fall, my sister's name appeared. Proof she'd been here quickly enough to brag online. Step 2. I printed the screenshot. The hospital copier spat out the page, warm and smelling of toner, my sister's words black against white. She won't be so smug now. Step 3. I drafted a letter, shaky handwriting but steady words. Attached are records of intent and witness timing related to my fall on November 6. I request this be reviewed as assault. When the patient advocate returned that afternoon, I slid the folder across the bed tray. I want this filed. He opened it, nodded once. We'll begin. This isn't light, but it's solid. Expect follow-up within 2 weeks. That evening my parents came again, carrying a bag of fruit. The antiseptic smell of the room clashed with the sweetness of oranges. My mother placed the bag down. You're stirring trouble, she warned softly. I looked at her, calm now. I filed it. Her face drained of color. My father's jaw clenched. You'll regret this, he muttered. I leaned back against the pillows, the beeping monitor steady. No. You will. When they left, their silence was louder than shouting. And later, in the dim hallway light, I heard my sister hiss. What did she do? My father's answer was low, but I caught one word. Complaint. For the first time I felt the balance tilt. Quiet shock had reached them. The first ripples arrived quickly. On November 24, 2020, a hospital administrator visited my room at 10:07, clipboard in hand. The antiseptic smell of the corridor clung to his suit. He explained. We've escalated your complaint. Law enforcement has been notified. Expect to be contacted. By that afternoon, 2 officers stood at my bedside. One clicked a pen, the other flipped open a notebook. They asked direct questions. Time, place, words spoken. I described the shove, the hiss on the stairs, the laughter later in the hospital hallway. Then I handed them the printed screenshot, my hands trembling only slightly. This is strong, one officer said, tucking the page into a file. That evening my parents stormed in. My father's voice was low, dangerous. You've turned family into police business. I didn't raise mine. Family turned me into a patient. My mother's eyes glistened with something that wasn't grief, fear, maybe. She pressed her lips tight, then left without another word. Practical fallout followed. My sister's internship offer, already fragile, was withdrawn once whispers reached her supervisor. My parents received a notice for a preliminary hearing scheduled December 8, 2020. The family facade was cracking. For me, consequences felt different. Nurses treated me with new respect. No longer the silent patient but the woman who'd drawn a line. My recovery accelerated. By the end of the week I could walk slowly with assistance, the 4 poles squeaking across the floor. Still, tension simmered. One night a nurse leaned in. Your family came by again. They weren't allowed in after hours. They weren't happy. I wrote in my notebook. Attempts continue. Stay steady. The win wasn't final. But for the first time it wasn't just me bearing wounds, they were feeling the weight too. And beneath it a small victory pulsed. I'd shown them I wouldn't die quietly. On December 2, 2020, exactly 26 days after the fall, a brown envelope arrived at the nurse's station with my name scrawled in blue ink. Inside was a security camera report from the hospital lobby, sent by the patient advocate. The log showed timestamps. 21:46, sister enters lobby. 21:50, sister uses staff stairwell. 21:55, sister leaves, phone in hand, laughing. The report was stamped official, the ink slightly smudged where the clerk had signed. It matched the group chat screenshot to the minute. When I held the pages, my hands shook. Not from weakness but from the weight of truth. It was airtight. Words and video aligned. That evening my parents arrived again. Their faces were pale, voices clipped. You're destroying us, my father said, gripping the foot of the bed. You did that yourselves, I replied calmly, laying the report flat on the blanket. My mother reached for it. This is family business. Don't spread it further. I pulled it back, the paper warm under my palm. It's already filed. You can't bury this. My sister stood in the corner, arms crossed, but her eyes darted to the stamped report. For the first time her smirk faltered. Her countermove was weak, a whisper. You think this makes you safe? You'll never belong. I met her stare. I don't need to belong to people who'd rather see me dead than proud. The silence was thick, broken only by the steady beeping of the monitor. I knew then. The truth gap had closed. They couldn't deny, couldn't twist, couldn't erase. As they filed out, my father muttered, "This isn't over." But for me it was. The proof was sealed, undeniable, and in my hands. It is June 2021 now, half a year since the fall, and I wake in my own apartment, not a hospital bed. The morning light cuts across the hardwood, warm and steady. The kettle whistles, sharp and comforting. I pour coffee into a chipped white mug and sit at the small table by the window. My body still carries traces of November. Thin scars along my ribs, a stiffness in my shoulder when the weather shifts. But I walk unassisted, I work again, and the contract that sparked all of this still stands. $900,000 a year, 5 years locked, my name signed in ink. The folder of evidence, the chat screenshot, the visitor log, the security report, rests in a fireproof box under my bed. I don't touch it often. Knowing it's there is enough. I no longer wait for visits from my parents. I don't answer their calls. My sister tries sometimes. Messages that range from anger to false sweetness, but I keep them unread. My boundary is silence. Instead, I built new rituals. Every evening at 1900 hours, I write for an hour, no phone near me. On Sundays, I walk along the river, headphones in, letting the city noise fade behind the sound of water. 3 months from now, I'll renew my lease and repaint the bedroom a pale blue. I don't chase family approval anymore. I don't measure my worth against their silence or their sneers. This morning, as I sip my coffee, I open my notebook to a clean page. Across the top I write, "Present, not erased." I close my eyes, breathe in the quiet, and feel the calm weight of my own life. I choose myself in present tense every single day.